What's up, nerds? Welcome back to the Raging Rainbow. My name is Dylan, doing a comic book review for The Flash, number 771. And in this issue, DC continues to set its own house on fire, so let's all buckle up. Like I said with this, DC is just continuing to destroy its own history, which is such a shame because if you will remember, what happened at the end of the last issue is Wally is continuing to get thrown through the Speed Force or whatever, and now he's landed in the world of like the Super Friends animated show, and specifically in the Legion of Doom headquarters. And so we can see here everybody's assembled and they're all kind of like rejoicing because you can see Superman is laid out right there. And basically what they're saying is that somehow the Flash, like Wally showing up, they're thinking it killed Superman, so they're all rejoicing like, hey, he did it, he killed him. And so apparently that is enough to like spur them, or I think spur specifically Cheetah, to like nominate him to be like join the group or whatever. And so she's saying like, let's take a vote. And then that brings us over to present day, basically, where if you will remember, the team of Barry Allen, Michael Holt, Mr. Terrific, and Oliver Queen, Green Arrow, are all assembled trying to get Wally home. And right now they're specifically looking at like holograms or whatever of all of the assembled villains. And who is it? I think Barry. No, it's Mr. Terrific, who's saying like, look at these faces. They look different. And so Oliver is asking like, well, is it the future again? He's like, no, I don't think so. And no, it definitely isn't. So all of a sudden we get this nightmare fuel ass face from Barry as he has his eureka moment, or he's getting ready to eat a human face. I'm not entirely sure. So he's like, no, of course. He's somewhere in the Omniverse. More of this Omniverse shit. So Mr. Terrific is like, that makes sense. The Speed Force traverses time, space, and dimensions. Meaning, Barry says there's an infinite number of conduits to jump into. And Oliver is like, which means he may never come home. So we cut back over to the Legion of Doom where they're actually, the way that they decide on shit is instead of saying like I or whatever, they say evil if they agree with the resolution. So Cheetah says, all those in favor of adding Reverse Flash to the Legion of Doom say evil. So they all say evil, except for Lex Luthor, who's looking very salty about the whole situation. So all of a sudden, Barry is basically trying to tell him like, don't worry, we're going to get you out or whatever. Because he's telling him like, you jumped somewhere else in the Omniverse. Like, you're not even actually in our own plane of existence. You're in somewhere else. The Speed Force threw you somewhere else. And so he's telling him like, we're going to get you back. And Wally's just like, thanks. To which I guess Cheetah overhears him. And she's like, no, thank you. You managed to make like the big blue Boy Scout like a harmless little toy or whatever. And then Riddler takes note of the fact that Luthor's all like jealous. And he's like, riddle me this. Who is bald and rich and angry he didn't kill Superman? Jealous Luthor. To which, of course, Luthor's like, I'm not jealous. And then Scarecrow is like peeking out from over there. And he's like, you are acting jealous. So all of a sudden he like throws a tantrum. And he says, I just think a vote to allow Reverse Flash prestigious to allow, I think they fucked up the words here, and I don't exactly know how this happened, because the way that it's ordered, like, how did you even, look, I'm going to read it for you the way that it is verbatim in this book. I just think a vote to allow Reverse Flash prestigious institution in our is premature. So obviously the way it's supposed to read is, I just think a vote to allow Reverse Flash in our prestigious institution is premature. But if you will look at the words on the page, and we're looking specifically at this one, this bubble, this is where the words are. If you will notice, the words prestigious institution come before in our, but how did they do that? Like, how did anybody put the words in our after prestigious like, were you piecing the words in two at a time? So, anyway, just ignoring that, even though I didn't. He's saying, like, the Legion of Doom isn't for everyone, You have to be a super villain who's done super bad things. And so, like, Solomon Grundy's telling him, like, well, he did kill Superman. And he's like, but how did he do it, hmm? All we saw was like the lightning shoot out of his chest and then he fell on the floor. Like, how do we know that was even Reverse Flash? That's never a power that he's had before. So he's like, well, Cheetah's the one saying, like, oh, that does make sense. Maybe he's right. He's like, of course I'm right. I'm Lex Luthor. So he's like saying, so tell us, Reverse Flash, what else are you hiding? And Barry tells him, like, say something, Wally. So he finally pipes up and he's like, hiding? No, I know you, Luthor. If I told you everything I could do, you'd somehow use it against me. In fact, he probably has a file on everyone here. It's very Batman. So Luthor immediately goes on the defensive. He's like, what? Me? No, I would never do that. And so Cheetah's like saying, he's lying. I can smell it. To which the dumbass gives himself up. And he's like, you can't smell if someone is lying. And she's like, how would you know? And he's like, it's not in your file. So, of course, Riddler's like, so he was right. Who loves the colors green and purple? And then Luthor has to do this thing. He's like, me, Riddler, me. Your stupid riddles aren't even riddles. They're just really terrible observations. And that's how you know this was written by someone in the current generation. Really terrible, you could have just said, they're terrible. They're just terrible observations. Adding the really in there is very millennial. You know what I mean? And I'm a millennial. But anyway, he's like, they're just really terrible observations. Watch. Riddle me this. Who wears tights is annoying and paid me to get a seat in the Legion? So apparently Riddler paid his way onto this. And so Solomon Grundy is like, you cheat. Grundy not born yesterday, Luthor. And then we have to do this shit where Luthor is like, yes, you were. You specifically said you were born on a Monday, and that, my blockheaded friend, was yesterday. So they go on arguing, and at that, while they're doing that or whatever, Reverse Flash is like slinking out of the room, and someone is calling for like Luthor to be expelled from the Legion. So they're like starting to vote, or they're calling for a vote on that. And then Superman wakes up, and he still has all of that Speed Force energy. So he's like, I don't know what you tried to do, Reverse Flash, but it didn't work. So Luthor is like, see, he's not dead. All those in favor of rescinding Reverse Flash's membership say evil. So all of a sudden he remembers, like, oh yeah, shit, Superman's awake. He's like, evil? So again, Reverse Flash Wally West takes off running, right? And he gets out of the room, as you can see, like, Solomon Grundy's coming crashing out. So Superman's just wreaking hell in there. And then he cuts off Wally. And Wally tries to tell him, like, no, it's not what you think. Like, I'm not actually the Reverse Flash. I'm Wally West. Like, I know you, Superman. Like, if you're actually imbued right now with Speed Force energy, and I have to drain it off of you. If I don't, you're going to explode. And so Superman tells him, and let me guess, you want to use the same dampening ray that Luthor used to get me here in order to siphon it off? The S on my chest doesn't stand for stupid, pal. Flash is looking at him, he's like, Luthor did what? Like, literally, he's making that face, like, Luthor did what? He's like, Barry tells him, like, Wally, if you can find out how Lex drained his powers, you can use it to drain the surge power. Yeah, the surge power from Superman. So he says, but first I have to find Lex. And conveniently, Lex Luthor all of a sudden shows up in his, like, spaceship or whatever. And he's telling Superman, like, I had this thing outfitted with kryptonite lasers or whatever, just in case I ever encountered you out in space. And so he, like, takes out the window. And then before, I guess, all of the oxygen gets sucked out of the room, Wally asks Barry, how many seconds can a human survive in space? And he's like, what? He's like, you heard me. So he says less than 15 seconds he can make it. So he says, and if I die in this body, do I die? He's like, we don't think so, but I mean, they don't really know. How many times has this ever happened, Wally? Why would they know the answer to that? So he's like, good enough for me, and he lets go. Because what he's doing is he's going to float towards Luthor's ship, and that he does end up, like, somehow grabbing onto it. I don't even really know how, because if you can see, like, where he's holding onto, like, there's nothing for him to hold onto, so I don't know how he actually stopped himself. But anyway, he decides to, like, vibrate his way through the ship and into, like, the cockpit or whatever, where Lex Luthor is. And so Lex is getting ready to, like, line up his shot against Superman, but it doesn't work because all of a sudden Wally comes up behind him, And he's asking him, like, how did you manage to depower Superman before? And Luthor tries to tell him, like, that's proprietary. I can't tell you. But he interrupts him by speed slapping him, and he's just like, oh, the green button by the by the damn steering wheel. So Flash goes over to do that, and all of a sudden, as we can see, like, Superman is being overcome with the energy as he's about to be, like, exploded, I guess you could say. And so he's going to have to shoot at him with these lasers that Luthor used to depower him last time. And so he blasts him, and then I guess it just hits him. Either that or he explodes and the sun absorbs it. I don't know. I'm assuming he hit him with the laser. And then all of a sudden, at that moment, he feels himself starting to, like, slip back into the Speed Force, so he knows he's about to leave Reverse Flash's body. And Lex Luthor is getting all pissed at him. He's like, "You fool! You've absorbed too much energy. This ship is going to explode." He's like, "Oh, that's too bad." And he's like, "You'll pay for this." So he comes over here, and Flash is telling him, like, "You know what? Go ahead. Give me your best shot. I won't even move." And as we can see by the blue glow, all of a sudden Wally disappears, and it's Reverse Flash again. And all of a sudden he's like, "Luthor," right as he lands the punch. So, pretty funny. I did like that. And then all of a sudden Superman, who is now free of that Speed Force energy, comes up to the front of the ship. He's like, "Engine trouble?" So Luthor's just like, "Great." So we go back to Wally, who is falling back through the Speed Force. And then that brings us back to the team, because apparently Linda, Wally's wife, is, like, calling him, and no one's answering his phone. So they're like, someone's going to have to answer the phone. Who's going to do it? And finally, Mr. Terrific decides, yeah, I'll do it. So he answers the phone, and he tries to be rational. But of course, as you can imagine, it's not really working, because at one point she apparently insists that they need to get someone smarter than him. Third smartest man on the planet, but sure, let's get someone smarter than him, like Lex Luthor. So he's like saying, like, yes, we'll go ahead and we'll give you updates like every hour or whatever. And then Barry asks him, like, well, like, how did it go? And he says, we better get Wally back quick, or we're all in danger. Let's get to work. So Wally's talking about, like, how basically they skip over some of them, because as we can see, apparently they're implying that he was in the body of Max Mercury, and he drained some of the Speed Force energy out of this Bison, I guess. And then we go over to the to the Teen Titans now, and it's saying it's between, like, Billy and the other guy. I can't remember his name. And basically he's telling Billy, like, oh, okay, so all I gotta do is say the magic word, and then I'll have, like, all of these powers. And, like, Billy's like, yeah, totally, just say the word, and that's totally how it works. So he's like, okay, here I go, I'm gonna try it. And so he says the magic word, which he assumes, I guess, because Billy told him, he says, blammo. And then he's like, nothing happened. So of course Billy starts laughing at him. He's like, you actually said it. And then, it's Miguel, Blue Beetle. Right? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Blue Beetle. So all of a sudden, like, his Teen Titans logo or whatever starts glowing, and then, like, lightning starts shooting out of it. So he's like, oh my god, like, it worked. And then Wally West, like, the other Wally West, another one of the Wally West in a different alternate universe. Because as you can see, this is the actual Wally West who should have been in Teen Titans. But we have Wallace West, the tokenized Kid Flash, in the Teen Titans Academy right now. We don't actually have this Wally West, because this Wally West is the grown-up, so he's not in the Teen Titans anymore. But apparently we have that moment where I guess he slipped into a separate but identical universe. And then he does that again, and this part was even more confusing for a few different reasons. So, well, not confusing, just annoying. But for one thing, apparently he jumped into the body of, I guess, Jesse Quick. So, because if you remember, she was going by Liberty Bell, and then she had, like, both powers. So, like, he slipped into that body for a short time. But what we're seeing here is, for some reason, from the vantage point of Green Lantern, as you can see, like, from his hand right here, apparently we're seeing Alan Scott's point of view, where he's seeing. So this is what I'm wondering, like, if this is from Alan Scott's point of view, if that's actually what's going on, which from the perspective of this hand seems to be the case. If that's the case, why is he seeing Jessie Liberty Bell, whichever she was going by at this point? Because this is during, like, Jeff Johns' Justice Society run. And if you remember, she was the daughter of the original Johnny Quick and Liberty Bell. and that was how she had both powers. She used her mother's powers at first, but then she ended up using her father's speed formula. It's not really important, but anyway, if he is in her body right here, why is Green Lantern Alan Scott seeing him like this? You know what I mean? He should still be seeing him as her. So I don't know why we're doing that, other than just to like do this whole thing of having uh, our man call him honey just for like comedic effect, I guess. Where he's like, honey, I feel strange. And he's like, you feel strange. So he jumped through that one for a moment. And then we go to this. I cannot, if someone remembers what issue this is, I remember reading an article about this particular issue over here on this side with Barry Allen where he went up against this particular villain. I cannot remember what issue it is. If you remember or you have that issue, do feel free to let me know because I was trying to find it out and I could not remember. So if I remember this is specifically from like, I think the Silver Age or maybe it was the Bronze Age of Flash comics where he went up against this guy and I think he like took his Speed Force powers from him or something. Just a weird like story or whatever. But anyway, we go back to the present where Barry and the rest of the guys are trying Oliver's like coffee or whatever, and they're all reacting because apparently it tastes like shit. And he's telling him like, yeah, well, you know, it does get the engine going or whatever because Mr. Terrific tells him it tastes like battery acid, which, damn. So he's like, well, it does get the engine going. And apparently it does because all of a sudden, like, Barry starts having, like, a Coke moment where he starts, like, having a brain blast, I guess, to use some Jimmy Neutron terminology, where he starts working stuff out. And he's like, we assume the surge was created outside of the Speed Force. But what if the Speed Force created the surge? Basically to try and expel something that was within it. That's what they figured out. There's something in the Speed Force that shouldn't be there. It's trying to get it out. And so while it's trying to do that, apparently it withdrew Speed Force energy from all of the normal speedsters, gave it to random people throughout different alternate universes and timelines and Wally, and is now trying to throw it up. So they're trying to figure out, okay, well, how can we give it the Heimlich maneuver? So they're going to give it like some sort of like power surge or whatever. And then Mr. Terrific is saying like, maybe we can reconfigure the tachyon emitter to send a burst of energy into the Speed Force the next time he flashes to another body. And Barry says, a surge within a surge. I like it. I'll start drawing up schematics to reconfigure the emitter. And he's like, guys, you won't believe where he's landed. And we see where he's landed. He's in the body of his son, Jay. And he's talking to his daughter, Irie. And this whole part was just annoying because apparently his daughter is just Speed Force Jesus. Not only did she know he was going to come here at this particular moment and go through all of this stuff and have all of these questions, because apparently he told her about all of this. Get it? Timelines? Isn't that fun? But anyway, he told her about all of this, so she was prepared for him to jump into his son's body, and she's just talking to him like, look, don't worry, calm down. I know what's going on. I have the extra Speed Force energy. I'm going to go ahead and take care of it for you because I'm the best. So just relax. If you have any questions or anything, do feel free to ask. She doesn't actually say that, but he does end up asking some questions or whatever. And then we end up seeing in there where he's saying like, no, you know, because she has to go fight crime. He does mention somewhere in there that like he retired from like being a hero, and she spits out her drink. She's like, retired? That's funny. Because all of a sudden she's in her superhero outfit, and he's like, no, I never wanted this for y'all. Like, you were never supposed to be a superhero. It's like, no. She's like, no. I'm not the only one. Like, Jay is also a hero, and you're the reason why we're heroes. Like, we had to continue doing this or whatever. Stupid. So she takes them into this portal, and then apparently she's able to run out in space. They're both able to run out in space without any type of like protective gear at all. Because I guess the Speed Force just projects some sort of like protective field around them while they're running, I guess. And then even when they stop, they're able to still talk in the vacuum of space. And then she was able to detect that he was getting ready to like jump to another body. So then she speaks to Barry through him because he's just a telephone. And she tells Barry like, okay, Uncle Barry, like, you know, it's about to happen. Like, go ahead and do whatever you're going to do. So he goes ahead and disappears, like literally disappears, body and all. Like, why? Why did his body disappear? None of the other times did his body actually disappear. It was just the other speedster came back. So what happened to his son? Did his son just now cease to exist? What happened with that? And then we get this part where we jump over to the worst possible storyline ever told in DC Comics. You know the one I'm talking about, Heroes in Crisis, if you couldn't tell by this bland ass cornfield. Well, it's not really a cornfield, it almost kind of looks like a wheat field. And I know them because I grew up literally by fields that look just like this. I'm not even bullshitting you. So he wakes up there, and all of a sudden he looks up and realizes, like, oh no, a bunch of the dead heroes are coming back, or the dead characters are coming back, because we can see Blue Jay, Commander Steel, Solstice, Hotspot, the Protector, Lagoon Boy, Tattooed Man, Gunfire, Gnark, Red Devil, and Nemesis, and Poison Ivy all falling down. Like, all of the people who died in Heroes in Crisis, yeah, they're falling down right now. So I don't know if this is like some sort of way to retcon them back in somehow, or I don't know. I don't know. Like, if anything, the last thing I would have wanted them to revisit was Heroes in Crisis. Seriously. And that is exactly the first, well, not the first thing, but that's exactly what they went back to. And I'm like, oh my God. If this is like going to be some sort of attempt, I guess, to like retcon the whole thing of like Wally being some sort of accidental mass murderer, you know? Well, I guess it wasn't even really I don't know. That whole storyline was so stupid. I hated it so much. But if they're going to try and undo some of the damage that was done there, I guess I can accept it. But we're going to have to see what happens here, because they're doing this thing that DC Comics always does, where they do these things, they have these like big storylines, and they're like, oh, that was crazy, that was wild, right? That changed the DC universe forever, right? No, it didn't. So I don't know. We'll see what happens with that, but yeah, that's what we got from the Flash 771. So those were my thoughts on it, and like I said, I don't really have many high hopes going into any of these books from like the big two anymore. So at this point, it's just to see like how much worse can the fire get. You know what I mean? But anyway, yeah, that's going to do it for my review on this, guys. So if you read this, do feel free to let me know what you thought. What do you think of them going back to the Heroes in Crisis storyline? Are you excited to see them revisit that? Are there any like true fans of that? Yeah, there are. I've seen some of them on Twitter, like people who genuinely like that storyline because they thought it was just such amazing pathos that we got to see, like all of these heroes going through this like therapy thing. Stupid. But anyway, that's going to do it for me here on this one, guys. So if you enjoyed this video, then do like the video, subscribe, share it with everyone that you know. And if you're done here, then go read a book. And if not, then I will see you on my next video.